came down from Sinai, and I had the luchos, I had the tablets of the first the first tablets. I saw what was going on and I broke them. So the Rebbe explained once. It says in the Gemara that the breaking of the tablets, the passing of a tzaddik, the passing of a righteous man, is similar or is analogous to the breaking of the tablets. That's what it says. In other words, when a tzaddik passes away, so it's like the tablets break. Okay, we can roughly understand. It's a tragedy. A tzaddik dying, luch is breaking. You can maybe make these jumps, these gap jumps of what that means. The Rebbe explained something very profound. What does it mean? What does it mean? And he was saying this in connection to his father. What does this mean that when a tzaddik passes away, it's like the luchos, the tablets are broken? So he said something fascinating. They were the tablets themselves were very unique, very unique. And the Medrash says that when Moshe Rabbeinu saw the people sinning with the golden calf, so the letters of the luchos flew away. Letters of the luchos flew away, and what was left was stone. So the simple thing that we were told when we were children was that how did Moshe Rabbeinu carry such heavy luchos? They were heavy. I mean, they were tons. They were heavy. Because they were made of sanpirion. They were made of this precious sapphire or whatever, and they were big. So the answer is that we were told as children is that as long as the letters were there, as long as the letters of the Ten Commandments were there, so the letters were there. It says they were standing there by miracle. How do you know? Because the letter Mem, right? The letter Mem, the last letter of the alphabet, or Samach, right? If you think about it, if you engrave a Mem, right? So there has to be a middle, right? Or else it looks like a hole. The only way that the final Mem or the final Samach can be seen as a letter Mem or Samach is if in the middle there's a square, and around that square, is empty, and that's how you tell it's a Mem, right? I just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly. So what happened? So how did that Mem stay there? How did that middle thing stay there? Because it's being engraved. It's a Mem, so it must be, and it's through and through. That's the whole point, because you were able to read it from both sides. So it's through and through. So it must be that it was miraculous. That little piece that identifies a final Mem and a final and a Samach was standing there, so to speak, was suspended by miracle. So as long as there were letters, it was a miraculous thing. So miraculous thing. Moshe Rabbeinu just had to navigate. But the minute the letters left, so now it was stone. It was stone. So Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't hold it, so he broke it. That's how we were told as children. But it's much deeper than that. You can tell, Moshe Rabbeinu broke them. He broke them. So the Rebbe explains. So the Rebbe asked the question. He says, "Okay, so why is it a tragedy? Once the letters leave the stones, the luchos, the tablets, it's not holy anymore. It's not special. Okay, it's nice. It's godly stones, but it's not nothing really spiritual because there's no letters there. If the letters are flying away, letters, the Hebrew word is oisius parches. The letters flew. So if the letters flew, it's nishken grace azach. It's not a big deal, So it's a piece of stone. It's a piece of. The Rebbe explains, no, it's not like that. The luchos, they permeated the stone. It wasn't like writing on a parchment. It was engraved in the stone. If you look at the passages there, you'll see how it fits. And therefore, even though the letters, so to speak, the clear letters flew away, but the stone retained the same holiness. Why? Because the letters of the luchos weren't mere letters in addition to the stone; they were part of the stone. Same thing is the body of a tzaddik. A tzaddik, you would say ostensibly, that you have two things. You have the soul and the body. Okay, so the soul leaves and the body is nothing. It's garnished. The body can't function anymore. So the answer is that the passing of a tzaddik was very similar to the breaking of the luchos, because just like the breaking of the luchos, even though the letters left, even though in the case of the tzaddik the neshama leaves, the neshama goes away. It's lacking a tremendous thing, but the body of a tzaddik is also something special, is also something unique. And when that body can't function anymore, so it's like broken. It's broken. It's a broken luchos. It's a broken tablet, and that's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that this body that was so permeated with holiness, that was so permeated as part of his existence, that and that's another reason why, by the way, if anybody wonders what is so unique about, why is so special about going to the gravesite of a tzaddik? What is, the tzaddik isn't there. The tzaddik is neshama. His soul goes somewhere. Or like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, he says a fascinating thing, that since the life of a tzaddik is not a physical life, it's a spiritual life. So in truth, the tzaddik is everywhere. Why do we go to the gravesite of a tzaddik and we daven there, we pray there? And the answer is because that's exactly the point. The body of a tzaddik was not a body. It was a body that was so pure, that was so permeated with holiness. And that's what we need to learn. That's what we need to identify with. In other words, we're bodies. We're bodies that eat steak and pizza and do a lot of other good stuff. And so when we go to a tzaddik, what we want to connect to is not just his neshama, his soul. We want to connect to his pure body, his body as it was permeated with the holiness of the neshama. And I guess there's no better description than somebody like Rabbi Yitzchak. How do you know he was a great man? Maybe he's just, maybe he was just a rabbi. Us Chabadniks, we go all over the world, and every boy, every yeshiva student comes back at some point in his life with the following story: my grandfather was a big rabbi. Maybe he was a chazan in the shul, and maybe he just had a nice long beard. But everybody come. And how do you know? Maybe Rabbi Yitzchak wasn't. By the way, I want to say something funny. In Russia, they needed a rabbi. They needed a chief rabbi. It's a true story. And you know what happens when you act like the Russians did. And then you need a rabbi. There's no rabbi because they got rid of all the rabbis. So what do you do? But they needed a rabbi. I think either the Olympics or one of these things. There was a thing, and they needed to show that there's a chief rabbi, and they didn't have anybody. So the funny part was they found an elderly Jew who was a doorman either in a hotel. I forgot where he was a doorman. He was a doorman in a hotel or in a government building. It's a true story, by the way. I saw a picture of him. And he, for whatever reason, he had a beautiful beard. He had a beautiful white beard. But he was a doorman. So they made him the rabbi. So all the guys come, and the Jewish community comes in Moscow and Petersburg, and they see who's the rabbi, the doorman. But anyway.
He opens more doors than you think.
Yeah, he opens up more doors than you think. There you go. So how do you know that Rabbi Yitzchak was such a great man? And the answer is simple. Look at what he produced. Look at his child. Look at his son. Look at what he did. It doesn't come from just regular. So I'll tell you one or two little stories that affected me. I assume that from what I heard, Rabbi Yossi told you the story about the matzahs, which was just, I think who we grew up, especially me in America, all of us here that grew up in a democratic country, we don't quite understand what exactly went on in Soviet Russia. I think I said this at one of the other Farbrengens, that maybe as it relates to the previous Rebbe, when he was put in a prison called Shpalerka or whatever those prisons, maybe I'm making a mistake, the name of it, in Leningrad. So it was Shvalerka. So older Hasidim told me, I heard this from them, that you don't understand, when somebody would say the name Shvalerka, people would lose themselves. They would simply defecate themselves, because it was such a terrible, terrorizing situation that we don't even understand what it was in those days, what it was like in those days. And there's a very interesting. I just want to. I want to be graphic, but I want to paint a picture, because it's important to understand. Sure.